going to be needing for this project are just some watercolor paper, a paintbrush, your stamps that you're going to make next, probably some tissue or a paper towel, and then of course watercolor paint. You could also use acrylic, and you're going to need some water. Alright, so if you haven't already made your stamps, you're going to need to make your stamps. You're going to use potatoes, vegetables, apples, anything you want. I used potatoes because they're nice and round. So I did a circle, and then I started cutting this one up and didn't like how it turned out, so I started again, made a triangle. And then my last shape is additional circle, but I carved out little slices in it to give it a little bit of an interesting texture. Okay, so for preparing the paper, I wanted a really uniform pattern. So I decided to go ahead and measure. My paper was 9 by 12. So I went ahead and made some even lines by taking a ruler and measuring every 2 inches. That way it kind of worked as a guide for me when I was stamping to kind of stay in one line. So I measured on one side of my paper, then I measured on the other side of my paper, just to make sure that when I set my ruler down, it comes across evenly and doesn't get kind of slanted in any line. And you'll see me kind of using both of those guides to draw this line here. So I went ahead and made these guides across the entire paper, so I have these nice easy lines now with light pencil, so you can erase it afterwards. So important. All right, so next step is to go ahead and mix your paint. So I decided to have one color paint for each of my different stencils. So I did black, teal, and brown. All right, now for the fun part. So we're gonna take our stencils, or our little stampers, and we're just going to basically take the paint and paint onto the stamp. So you'll see that I'm adding some black. Now, if you puddle it, you're gonna make a really big, messy, blob that'll kind of ooze a little like you see here, right on the very first one. But if you lift it up and there's still enough paint, you can make a second stamp and it'll be a little less intense. So decide how intense you want or how much water you want it to look like as you go. Paint really lightly if you just want it to be kind of just the shape. I love how watercolor looks instead of acrylic. I just love how it looks a little bit watery and imperfect, and that was the effect that I really wanted with my variety painting. So watercolor is why, that's why I chose watercolor. So you can also use acrylic to do this. And you'll get a little bit more of a refined look, but to me it looks a little bit, I don't know, like kindergarten, and I wanted this to look kind of like a cool geometric art print, and so watercolor just has this like see-through look that I loved. So just go through. I used those pencil lines that I made to help me guide and keep everything really even and symmetrical. We're really asymmetrical here. And then I just went through and stamped with each of my different potato stamps, different color. Each stamp had its own color, and then I just went through and filled it kind of in an organized way and haphazard sort of way. So do that until you're done, and then when you're satisfied, you want to just go ahead and let it dry completely. Okay, so the very last step before you take your photo is just to go back and erase any of those pencil guide marks that you had. Do it quickly with a white eraser, and you'll have a beautiful print in the end.